Hey everybody! I decided to do a mental health story video, and I'm just gonna start with that with no real explanation. So, as you guys know, I've had dermatophagia, where I bite the skin around my fingers. It's doing really good right now, actually. But, I mean, there's a little bit right there. But I've had dermatophagia since I was about, I want to say 7 years old. So that's been kind of my first experience with mental health, I suppose, with myself. So around age 7, the dermatophagia began. And around that same time, I became depressed, and a lot of people kind of don't believe that a 7-year-old can feel that way, but there would be times when I'd be sitting in my 2nd grade class and I would just think, if anything gets too bad, I could just kill myself. And that was always a background option for me in my head, and it was comforting. So at a young age, I was contemplating suicide, to be honest. I had a plan at age 7, and it was about the same plan I still have, but yeah, so that was when my depression and my dermatophagia manifested itself. And as far as my life goes, that was around the time when my parents split up, and I had to go, well, it was like the climax of their arguing and stuff, and then they split up when I was 7, and I had to go live with my mom alone. And as I've mentioned, she has paranoid schizophrenia, and I don't want to get too far into that on here. I'm comfortable talking about myself to a certain extent, but I don't want to air my mom's stuff on YouTube too much. But yeah, so I had to start living with her around that time, and so a lot of things started when I was 7 years old. And then I dealt with that pretty well up until I was 9, and I was living with her alone, and I didn't feel like I could talk to anybody about her mental illness or what was happening there while I lived with her, because I was used to adults always being right and them talking to each other about things. So I figured if I mentioned what my mom was doing and how it was living with her, that they wouldn't believe me and they would just tell her what I said, and then it would get worse, because no one really talked to me about what was wrong with her or that they noticed it. So I didn't tell anybody, and I just lived with it. And finally it got to the point where it was so bad living with her episodes, that I thought, I'm either going to run away and die on the streets, or I am going to tell my family and try to get out of this. Because I had a bag packed to run away, and I knew I wouldn't live on the streets, which was kind of the point. But so I told my dad, and he got me out of there, and now I live with him to this day because I'm poor. But anyway, yeah, so that was the beginning of it all, I suppose. And I still dealt with a lot of stuff through that time of my life when I was like 10, 11, 12. I had really bad anxiety. I would miss a lot of school because my stomach would be so sore from the anxiety, and I didn't know what it was. I thought I was sick. So Yeah, so my anxiety was really bad during that time, and I made it through middle school. I was depressed this whole time. I had depression, like actual chronic depression, and I made it through middle school though, miraculously, because my middle school was pretty terrible, but I had friends, so that was good. And then high school came, and I believe it was during my freshman year of high school. I was 14 or I had just turned 15 that my depression got really bad, and I couldn't do my homework. I couldn't concentrate on it enough to do it. I couldn't get out of bed. I would wake up as soon as my alarm went off. I would literally just start crying in my bed because I didn't want to get up and go to school. I wanted to die. I would walk from the bus home or to the bus in the morning or even around at school, and it wasn't like hearing a voice, but it was like a thought that would come into my head very often that just said, I want to die, and I wish I was dead. And it would always say one of those two things. It was mostly I want to die, but I wasn't actually thinking it at the time. It just kind of like would come into my head, and this would happen every half hour or so, and I could not get it out of my head that I wanted to die at all times. So it finally got so bad that I thought, I'm either going to kill myself or I'm going to get help. So I told my dad. That was really hard. At first he didn't think I needed help. He thought I just needed to exercise, but that wasn't it. So finally I went to the doctor and I took this like little quiz thingy, and according to that I had moderate, like pretty high-end moderate depression. So the doctor, because I was like 14, 15 at the time, he prescribed fluoxetine, which is generic Prozac, to me because it had the longest history being used in younger people. So I got on Prozac, and that was like a miracle for me. It instantly just lifted the weight off of me, and I stopped having the thought that I wanted to die uncontrollably. I was able to concentrate more. I didn't cry or feel like I was going to cry when I woke up in the morning. So Prozac kind of saved my life. So that helped me through the end of high school. I wasn't perfect, but it definitely managed it. And it wasn't until I got out of high school, or probably my senior year, that it started to not work as well. And I thought that it was just me. It wasn't that the medication wasn't working. I didn't really think that that was a possibility at the time, that it would just not work anymore. But so my depression steadily got worse again over the next few years through like what college I've done, and I tried to move out on my own, and that was horrible for a lot of reasons. The person I was living with, the friend that I was living with, was awful. And then my depression was getting worse at the same time, and I ended up moving back home and cutting off my friendship with them, and it still kept getting worse. And it was getting worse up until now, which I've been out of high school for 4 years now. So yeah, over the course of like 4 years, it's just been getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And finally, a few months ago, it was right before my 22nd birthday, I got so bad that I thought either I'm gonna lose everything, lose my job, lose my boyfriend, because I was going insane and wanted to die again, or I would get help. And so I went to the mental health clinic in my town and did the inpatient, and wasn't like inpatient, but that's what they call it when you just go in and talk to them basically for an hour and then they figure out what they're gonna do with you, kind of thing. And they offered to have me go into inpatient care where I stay in like the psych ward, but I said no. I don't want to do that, so I just opted for the counseling and stuff. And so I started counseling, and I take everything that the counselor says with a grain of salt because they aren't in my head and they weren't there for stuff that happened. And even though I can articulate what I'm feeling really well, they don't actually understand it probably as well as I do, like feeling it wise. So I take everything that she says, the counselor, with a grain of salt. But the main thing that this has done for me, this counseling, is give me some diagnoses that have made me be able to start thinking about controlling the way that I am. Because I kind of just was so focused on the depression that I didn't notice that a lot of things that I did were wrong and part of mental illness themselves. I knew that the dermatophagia was related to obsessive compulsive disorder because of what I've researched about it, and it is. But a lot of other things I do are also because of OCD. So I was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, and it's not cleanliness for me or repetition, it's fixation on things, and my fixation on them build up such an intense anxiety in my gut that I have to do something, act on it in some way in order to get rid of that fixation. For me, it's either biting my fingers or other things. I get obsessed and fixated on specific people that I'm jealous of, and I keep pictures of them on my computer, and looking at them and their pictures is part of it for me. I get fixated on them and it builds up anxiety, and then I have to look at pictures of them. It sounds pretty weird, which it is, but so that's another way that it manifests itself. A lot of things that I do are actually partially because of OCD. So I have OCD, I have depression, I found out that I actually have PTSD from what happened with my mom and from another event in my life that I'm not going to go into on this channel at all, most likely. But I have PTSD, which is kind of what sparked the OCD into existence, because in order to deal with the OCD and the anxiety, I had to create obsessions and compulsions that would calm me down. And like, I think the counselor called it like ruminating or something like that, but it's like a self-therapeutic type thing that I do, like when I bite on my fingers and stuff like that. So the PTSD kind of caused the OCD. And then besides that, recently, within the last few weeks, I asked my counselor, because finding out a diagnosis really helps me, because it puts things into perspective about, I'm I want to use the word crazy loosely, but I feel crazy. And when I find out that what I'm experiencing has a name and it's researched and other people have it, it makes me feel less crazy. So, do I really think I'm crazy? I would say that I might think myself is crazy, but other people, like the term crazy, just I use it very loosely because I care about psychology, but I feel crazy anyway. So I asked her what she thinks I have, basically, because I know I have the PTSD, the OCD, the depression, and she said that I have a personality disorder as well, and she didn't want to tell me which one because she thought that with my OCD I would fixate on it, and so I fixated on it and I researched personality disorders, and I was reading about them, different ones, and I came upon borderline personality disorder, and reading the definition, the textbook definition, and the diagnostic criteria, and other people talk about what it's like, it was just like 100% me. It just kind of like, I actually cried when I was reading about it, similarly to how I cried when I found out about dermatophagia, because it was just like, wow, all of these things that I do and all of these things that I feel are part of this, and it was just like overwhelming. And so I kind of self-diagnosed myself with borderline personality disorder at that point, which I kind of thought on and off over the years, over the past like year probably, that I might have that, but it wasn't until recently that I realized that I have to have it, because I have been becoming more and more aware of the things that I do. I've started a journal where I log things, and it was just 100% textbook borderline personality disorder. So I kept that from my counselor for the next time I saw her, and then the next time I saw her I said, you know, you said I have personality disorder, do you think borderline could be it? And she just said, oh yeah, you have borderline personality disorder. And it was just like, okay. So I am certain that I have it. It's not something that I just heard her say and so I blindly accepted it. Like, I know that I have borderline personality disorder because I have everything. The only thing that I don't do is abuse drugs or sleep around, and I do, however, in that same impulse control category, binge eat and spend excessively. But I mean, everything else on there, I mean, read the borderline personality diagnostic criteria and you understand my personality, which is really sad. But so lately my thing has been reading about borderline, because it's a serious personality disorder and it's a serious mental illness, and I go back and forth between being comforted by the fact that I know what it is and that I can now relate to other people that have it and reach out and find help. I alternate between that feeling and the feeling that I am crazy and that I'm just nuts and that it's hopeless. So I kind of have to not think about it too much, which is really hard, especially with OCD. But I've been reading about it, and I bought a few books about borderline that I haven't started yet, but let me just show you what I bought about that. because this is something that I'm going to be dealing with for the rest of my life, and so I want to understand it as well as I can. But I got borderline personality disorder for dummies, because I just want to basically understand it at this point. And I got I Hate You, Don't Leave Me, which I remember when I was younger, I would look in the psychology section and I'd see this book, and I always thought, like, that sounds just like me in my relationships. But, I mean, I didn't think I had borderline personality disorder, so I thought it was just a coincidence. But, I mean, that's pretty much how you can sum up my close relationships, is I hate you, don't leave me. So, then I got sometimes I act crazy, which I also feel that I act crazy. So I might make more videos about these specific mental illnesses that I have in the future, because I want to create a network of people, hopefully on the internet. That's how I would prefer it to be as far as this goes, as far as the mental disorders goes. I prefer it to be less direct, because I don't know, I just do. So I feel like having an internet network of other people that have the same mental problems as me would be very good. So I'm gonna be talking about these things more, I believe, as I feel comfortable with it. There's some things I'm not gonna share because I am a middle class person whose parents don't make a lot. I mean, I need to be able to find jobs. I need to keep my name clean in the public eye. I'm not rich where I can just say whatever I want about myself and it's good. Because, I mean, if I try to get a job and somebody looks online and I'm just talking about how nuts I am all the time, like, nobody's gonna hire me. So there are certain things that I'm not going to talk about. But, I mean, if you message me about it, I will. But I don't want to have my face saying it, if that makes sense. So, anyway, I'm going to be making more videos about these kinds of things because I've always loved psychology, but it's a different kind of love when you're experiencing it as well. So I hope that I will eventually be able to help, because I've become very, very passionate about my dermatophagia, like, not about having it, but like helping people not feel crazy like I did for having this and making people aware of it. And I feel that same way now about borderline personality disorder. I feel like I want people to know that this exists, and I want people to understand that there's other people that have it and that you're not crazy and that I get it. And I want people who have a relationship with somebody who has this to understand that they aren't trying to be manipulative and overly sensitive and everything. They can't help it, and it's hard, but I want to offer my ear, I guess, and my arms open to you for borderline personality disorder and the dermatophagia. So I am here for you if you have these. I mean, if you don't have them, I just want to be here for people. That's one of the things I really want to do, is I want people who feel like they don't have anybody and like people don't understand them and they're crazy or they're weird or they're awkward or they're nerdy or they're sad. I want them to feel like they can watch my videos or they can think of me and feel less alone. I want people to feel comforted And I want them to understand that nothing is a death sentence, and that you are wonderful, and you're worth loving, and you're a worthwhile person. And I want people to find a friend in me, either a direct friend or just the comfort of knowing that somebody is messed up too. Because finding people like that have helped me a lot. I started watching somebody on YouTube recently who has a lot of mental issues, and it's just comforting just to see somebody talk about what I'm feeling. And even if I'm not feeling it, just to know that there are wonderful people in this world that have mental illness, and that you're not shit just because you have it. Because that's how I feel sometimes. I feel like, who the hell would love me even though I have a boyfriend? And like, what am I ever going to do with my life even though I have a job? Like, it weighs down on you, you know? And even if you don't have a boyfriend or a job, like, you're still a worthwhile person, and you deserve love and happiness. And it doesn't matter how mentally ill you are or how normal you are. Like, you're inherently worth something. So that's kind of what I want to create on here, is kind of just like a network of support, I guess, for people that feel weird. But I particularly want to reach out to people who have borderline personality disorder, and people who have depression, and people who have dermatophagia. People like that particularly is who I want to reach to. And I'm here, and I'm weird. Just kidding. But anyways, yeah. So this video is already almost a half hour long. So if you watched this whole thing, then thank you so much. And I really appreciate it. And I hope that this has been interesting or helpful in some way. And if you're interested in these types of mental health videos, then you can subscribe to me. And I also do other videos, obviously. But yeah. So hopefully this was interesting or helpful. So I'm just gonna go because I need to eat. I just got up and got ready and then filmed video, so I need to go eat and live my life. But have a wonderful day, and comment, message me. I'm gonna try to be better about answering messages. I've been terrible this whole time and I feel so bad about that, but I'm gonna try to just be an open support from here on. So yeah, I'm here. So how many times can I say so? Anyway, goodbye. Thank you for watching.